I've already said a little bit about Kristofer, who I've known for a while. We serve on some things together, and an old friend. I'll say another thing about. I wish Terrence Buckley was here, because I also know that Kristofer played lacrosse at St. Mary's. Is that right?
Yes, I think I did play lacrosse at St.
With
Mary's.
Terrence Buckley. Isn't that a riot? They were on the same team together. So.
I'm sure that we played lacrosse.
Okay.
Where is he today?
Yeah, where is he today? I don't know. Kristofer brings many different gifts. I didn't say specifically he's the canon for leadership for the diocese. So he is juggling a lot of different balls, visits many churches, helping churches to get through problems, to come alive, so he knows a lot about the diocese. But this specific topic I know is dear to his heart. So I'm glad. Let me just turn things over to Kristofer Lindh-Payne.
Great, and do we use the mic for this?
Yes, please.
Okay, good. All right. Can folks hear me okay? Is it positioned properly? It's really good to be back with you all here at St. Paul's. When your rector asked me to come, I was very excited. Mark, you're kind to invite and kind to introduce me in the way you did. There are many things that I love about the work that I get to do. One of them is that I get to visit congregations and talk about, what God is doing in our lives and how God is calling us to come alive in that. Mark and I have served for a lot of years on what's now called the Congregational Vitality Team together. Mark has been one of the most faithful members of that community and has the ability to just kind of see big picture things and help us to think strategically about that and how, as we seek to follow Jesus today, what is it we're being called to? If we're called to take up our cross and follow Jesus, we can't exactly do that if our hands are already full, right? If your hands are full of all the stuff, like you gotta lay that down so we can take up the cross. What that looks like on a daily basis in our common lives together, it's subject to interpretation and, more importantly, discernment. So, I think I've had a chance to talk to you all a little bit about Franciscan life before. It's been some time, and so I came with some specifics today around that. St. Francis of Assisi is one of the world's most popular saints. You've likely heard about him before. When you think about his life, tell me some of the things that you remember. You don't have to just be succinct. Let's get a couple of them up there. What do you remember?
Super rich prince.
Okay. All right. So why don't we say wealthy, princely, and conversion experience. Yep. All right, what else? I saw another hand back there. He could fly? Oh, that's a good story. Around the stigmata, that experience later in his life. That is one that's an intense story. Good memory on that one. He loved animals, yeah. You probably have seen statues of Francis in maybe a garden or bird bath before. You probably have heard someone, at least I hope you have, say one of the ways that we domesticated Francis of Assisi is by putting him as a statue and putting him in the gardens, because it's kind of, he's just there, not moving around, which is nothing like he was in life. He was an itinerant preacher and friar, which literally means little brother, who was out walking around. But his care for creation and the way that he saw God in everything was really radical. It was just radical for his day and also really radical for this day. But yes, loved animals. Do you remember any stories about specific animals that they talked about? Stories? There's a wolf called the Wolf of Gubbio I might say something about in a little bit, because I think it's a powerful one. So the wolf and the animals. I got a couple stories here that I want to share, but I want to kind of get those out. Anything else you remember about Francis? Yeah. Rebuild. All right. One or two more if we got, because I'm just trying to collect the things that you know so I don't tell you the same stories you already know. Anything else? All right, good. It's a good start. So about how long ago did he live? Does anybody remember that? It was in the bulletin, trick. And a trick question. He died almost exactly 800 years ago. On October 4th in 1226. So next year it will be 800 years. So that was a long time ago. And one could say, like, what does someone that lived and died that many years ago have to say to us today? Well, as followers of Jesus, we go back a lot further than that, right, in our stories. I think there is a lot as we think about the challenges of this world in which we live now, but I for one, think the story of his life and also the story of his death is something that's really powerful. So I'm going to share a little bit about that. So as, Nick, it was you that said wealthy and princely, right? Yeah, so Francis grew up in a family of affluence. His father was a clothing merchant. His father really wanted him to go into business with him, and Francis, had other things on his mind. He also really, he was said to be a pretty popular guy around town, and like many of the other young men of his time, like he sought glory in battle, and he fought in a couple of battles, and he did so pretty unsuccessfully. He was injured, became very ill, captured. So he wasn't a success as a soldier, but that was one of the ways that he thought, hey, I'm called to do this thing. And do you ever have this experience in your own life where you feel sure that this is what you're supposed to do and it doesn't exactly work out? I wish that it didn't happen to me as frequently as it does, but it's the reality. I mean, I think in community we pray together, we read our scriptures, we gather in community, and we seek that clarity, but sometimes we don't get it exactly right. And I think Francis is one of those people that really, a lot of the things about his life, it wasn't his perfection that I am most attracted to. It was his humility and his willingness to just be who he was. So given all of these things and all this pressure, and he was said to have stripped of all of his clothes, all the fineries, because he was trying to give away all of the wealthy, all of the cloth that his father had brought in. But when called to account by his dad and by the church, because, he was really he was running amok. So he gave all of the clothes that he had away, gave everything away, and really turned his back on his family in a way that when we think about that in a real way, that's not something that any of us feel called to probably, or maybe actually that's not true at all. Maybe there are ways that it is healthy, most healthy, to step away from family, but Francis was seeking a deeper calling, and it must have been pretty scary. Nick was talking about this experience of this call to rebuild God's house. I am not an artist, but this is an outline of a cross. It's this cross here, actually. It's the cross of San Damiano. It was an old Byzantine cross that was hanging in a dilapidated chapel outside of Assisi. And Francis was there praying, and he was praying before that cross, and he heard the voice of God say, Francis, Francis, rebuild my house that has fallen into ruin. And just as Nick said, he thought literally that what he was supposed to do was start rebuilding that chapel. And he did that successfully. He didn't do it by himself. There were others that really were captivated by the vision and the passion that he had, other brothers, sisters that came to be a part of that work. And it wasn't just that one building, there were other buildings, but that was really, I don't think that's what God was calling him to. Not that he was doing wrong, but that there was something much more. One could say that Francis was rebuilding the institution of the church. In fact, there's really beautiful images, and I created a PowerPoint. Maybe I'll send it on to Mark if there's ever that has some of these historic images from Francis's life. But there is one of the Pope dreaming, and he sees he sees this image of Francis propping up the church structure. I think the Pope thought Francis was rebuilding the institution of the church. He was calling it to reform. And there are some powerful ways that Francis did that, for sure. But I think that the work of rebuilding that Francis saw when God spoke to him and say, rebuild my house, I think that what God was really saying was the world. I don't think it was about that building. I don't think it was about the institution. I think it was about the world. And for me, when I ponder the call on our lives today as Christians, I think it's also about that repair, that rebuilding of the world that we're called to do. What do you think about that? Yeah, it is. It's really hard. You know, my dad is really good at fixing things. And as a kid, I really wanted to be good at fixing things. I'm not good at fixing things. It was hard. I tried for a long time to fit myself into that space. But it's really hard. So I want to talk a little bit about that. We're going to, in just a little bit, we're gonna do a little bit of talking together about some of the spaces that you feel called as individuals and as a community to do that work of rebuilding. There might be ways individually you feel called to do that, and it's outside of the work of St. Paul's, but we are all called to ministry together. And there's ways that you can be fed here. I know that you're being fed here in this place to do that work. We're going to come back to that. Yes? Yeah. Sure. That's a really great question. Can everyone hear that? What is society rebuilding if society is in large part dysfunctional? Yeah. Morning. Thank you so much. I wish I had a microphone. I mean, I do have a microphone, but to pass it around, lots of really beautiful, deep truth that you're sharing in that. Before, I just want to I want to see if I can, because not everyone could hear all the things that you said. This is some of the challenge of the space. But for you, someone that's been a part of this congregation for a long time, you have felt inspired, you have felt challenged, loved by clergy, by lay leaders here. Yep. And one of the things that I also want to bring to attention is rebuilding doesn't have to be huge things. It can be small things. And it's Carol, right? When you talked about how hard it is to rebuild, I mean, I think the immensity of the task can feel so overwhelming. And there are often times where I feel powerless to do anything about that. And I think those moments, I feel like I'm kind of in one of those moments now, just feeling powerless, not exactly sure what to do. And so that's I think the task of right now is to do some discernment around what are the small and possibly large things that we can do together. As an individual, as a family, there are things that you can do as a congregation or in a neighborhood association. But then when you start really looking at how we connect in larger ways in congregations that work together in Baltimore, but even across the diocese. So I want to say a little bit about that as well. I know I couldn't sum up all the things that you said, but I appreciate hearing all the things that you shared. Thank you. And did you want to?
Actually, you said it.
Okay.
When I think of St. Francis rebuilding the atmosphere of the church, I think of starting with what we can manage, because the task is so overwhelming. So you think small, and those small things kind of create ripple effects.
Yes.
St. Francis did small things, but most popular saint today.
So the energy that I'm feeling, and I might have this wrong because I do get things wrong, is like I'm feeling us getting ready to move deeper into a particular story around Francis, and I want us to do that. So I'm just going to name that we could talk about how Francis engaged the leper, like the leper of his time, that he was repulsed by this person, these people that were sick, and then was converted. Like that was also a part of his conversion story, that he encountered a wolf, this wolf in a town called Gubbio that had terrorized that space and entered in a way that was about addressing conflict, teaching people to not be afraid, to actually befriend and connect in this deep way with creation. There's this powerful story about interfaith engagement in a time of crusades where Francis sought to connect with a sultan in a different part of the world that believed different in a way that was really radical. There are all of these stories of his life that I think that we can draw from. And so, one approach we could take is to talk about all those stories, but what I'm hearing is some energy around the rebuilding. Is that fair? Maybe not rebuilding in terms of the big, and what's your name, please? Oh, Anne-Marie and David. The immensity of that, when we think about the challenges of society, it can feel pretty overwhelming. But is it all right if we kind of move into the moment now here at St. Paul's in Baltimore in the Diocese of Maryland? Is that all right? All right, so I'm going to kind of scrap some of this. Because there's the story of Francis's call early in his life, but there's also the story of his call late in his life as he was dying, and he lay there. His words to his brothers were, "I've done what is mine to do, and now you do what is yours." It's easy to kind of take someone that really seemed to do this beautiful, inspired work and to try to make your, dress like him, pattern your life after him. But I don't think that's what he really wanted. What he wanted was for us to come alive with seeing God in all of creation and to work with God to be about this healing and rebuilding of the world. So to talk about the particulars of this space and this time, is it all right if I pivot into that? Okay. And that we have a stop time, what's it, 11:45? Is that one? That's total, all said and done. All right. We're at 11:23 now. So I'm going to ask a couple questions for you. When you think about your passions, the things that make you come alive, and the intersection of the things that are challenges in the world right now. I'm going to draw a Venn diagram here. There's a theologian called Frederick Buechner who said vocation is where the world's deep gladness or deep joy, where your deep gladness and deep joy intersect with the world's deep need. So we think about your joy and the world's need. And that vocation is here. Yeah, vocation is essentially God's call and claim on your life. So what it is that, based on the gifts and skills that you have individually and as a congregation, what is it that you're being called to? We can't do all of the things, but we can do some of the things. And some of the work of discernment is figuring out what that is. And I think Francis's really extreme calling story at the beginning of his life and at the end of his life invite us to reflect on our own call. The things that God is challenging us to do today. So when you think about the things that are happening here at St. Paul's right now, we're going to start there. What are the things that you're most excited about in terms of the work that you all are doing together? Yes, Brianna.
I think this is apt to kind of this is the first Sunday of Sunday school.
Uh-huh.
I think one of our strengths as a congregation is the passion and the place that we hold for children in our congregation. You know, not all of us have kids, but I feel like even those who don't bring children with them to church on Sundays still care for the children here.
Mhm.
And I think, you know, Arthur, it's every Sunday we have to come to church and then right out of the house. But I still feel like his time here is so important, even if he doesn't realize it.
Yep.
So I think our education and the space that we hold for children here is
Education and space for children. So when Mark more than most, when I do visits to different places, Mark does an amazing job of preparing the person that's coming to know what to expect, the norms that you have, but even how to get in and out of buildings. Like, you don't make assumptions around that. But one of the things you said is, and I don't remember the exact number, but it was between like 27 and like 30 some acolytes, and a bunch of them are new. So today in the service, I counted 6 acolytes. I mean, like at first I was like, there's 3 of them, and then wait, there's another 3, and I was like, you know, that's incredible. Like that engagement of them. And I know it's challenging because, you know, I mean, you're like, there's the task of teaching them. Like it's, you know, you want connectivity in worship, and you want them to understand what they're doing, but who of us really understands the fullness of it? But the way that this community, lay and clergy leaders working together in a community working to support kids is a really beautiful thing. So it's not just an education where your kids are right now learning, but it's also in the acts of worship together. Awesome. What other things? Yes?
I'll say the forums I really enjoyed an education
The forums? Yeah. So it's around exploration of faith. How does it help you, David? I mean, exploring faith, what does that mean to you?
I think it squares the circle a little bit for faith in terms of the chaos of the outside world.
Yeah? So when we encounter chaos in the world, the forums give you a space to really learn, to connect with people, with concepts. I mean, this feels pretty good to me to be like not alone wrestling with the world. Like you're together with a group of people that are choosing. You're here because you want to be here. Right? You're here because you want to learn, you want to grow. Thank you. Yes, John. Social justice. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the work of social justice. It's something that you all engage. I want to unpack that a little bit, because I want to know what you, John, what you see around that here, because the passions of social justice can be wide-ranging. Like, are there specific things that you see? And I don't just mean specific issues, but it could be specific issues. Like, what are some of the things that you see here at Old St. Paul's that feel like a vital sign for you around the work of social justice?
That it's a place where people could have conversations about how their faith life translates to things around them. Not in a generic, like, do nice things to your neighbor, but like, that has nothing to do with what you're used to.
Why does it have to? It can have something to do. I mean, I would hope that when we preach the gospel, that it has something to do. Yeah. So redlining around like housing and justice and equality around that, specific to Baltimore. So this is a space where you all have been able to talk about that in a way that helps you feel a bit more equipped in your faith to address some of the challenges of this world. Well, one sec. So it's less about doing and more about thinking through. And is that something that you like about it, David, or would you like it to be different? Well, a part of our, I mean, if Anglican, if our Episcopal identity talks about the pillars of Scripture, tradition, and reason, like using our brains, thinking about this, I mean, our rational faculties is important. I think that especially in times of chaos, being able to use that to really define how you understand something so that you can really, if you are going to act, you can act in an effective way. Because there's nothing like kind of running around indiscriminately, not doing things that are particularly helpful. I mean, well, I see a lot of that also, right? Nick, what were you?
I think this, I'm going to build off the not doing to how we do it that we is that at Old St. Paul's, we're surprisingly good with visitors, and very quickly when folks have, joined our congregation, it becomes their church. Whereas in a lot of Episcopal churches, the church is for the folks who've been there for 40 plus years, and whose family has been there for generations. That doesn't have the feel here of like, hey, there's a cohort of people and this is their church and we're just on the side. We've been at those Episcopal churches. We really do bring folks in quickly. Yeah. More quickly than they would like sometimes. And that shows this like, we are inviting you
Yeah.
to be with us.
And helping to incorporate them in, equipping them to engage just in what it means to be, I mean, to be a member of a community in a space that's like this. I didn't see I see two hands. Who went up first? Did you?
Sort of related to Nick's point, we also have a really diverse congregation. We have people of different educational backgrounds, different ethnic backgrounds, different people of LGBT identities, and they're all welcome.
Yeah.
Different denominations. Yes.
So diversity is expressed in a variety of different ways, like race, class, culture, religious background, gender expression, sexual orientation. And I'm going to just try to spout it off again. So did you say Poncho Drive? Is that, okay. Our daily bread. So there's casserole, diaper, poncho, food through our daily bread. So there's a lot of ways that that you all are taking the things that you're learning. You're being transformed as a community here to think about the issues that you're facing. I'm coming right to you next. And then, but there's also some ways that you're acting together as well, and you're finding connection as you're making casseroles together, as you're gathering these things for members of your community that need that. Yes.
I've appreciated what I think guys call the shared government structure of the lay people here. So it's not just like 2 or 3 people making every decision.
Yep.
So, for example, your discernment, like bringing in lay people for discernment, and during, running these diaper drives and stuff, like lay people can have a part, like inviting people to read, and inviting people to host in the back. And so it's just that, that it's not just like this same, in some denominations it'll be, oh, here the same 4 people do everything, and it's nice that it's more dispersed. Like everyone can play a part, serve a role, and it's more dispersed leadership. And I really appreciate that about this congregation.
Thank you. So the shared leadership structure that across the laity and clergy, that there is full engagement, lots of opportunities for people to share their gifts in a way that you're connected to a whole in that. There's something that's really empowering about of finding the gift that you have to give something that people want and you need in community. So thank you for that. How are we doing on time here? All right, we still have 7 minutes until we're going to be wrapped up. So this is not the direction that I thought we were going to go today, and I'm really glad for that. Sometimes sometimes the thing that we think that we're being called to do is not necessarily the thing that we actually do. Now, I want to be able to bring this into focus in some way that helps you all a little bit more move from where you are to where you're being called to go. Mark and I have gotten to work together through not only the Congregational Vitality team, but also the college, something called the College for Congregational Development. Mark got trained, graduated 2 years or a year ago? I don't remember. So this is a great resource to teach lay and clergy leaders models for the transformation of church and world and that. There's one of the foundational models is something called gather, transform, and send. And I was just thinking as you're describing some of the things that you do well here as part of your vocation, like in the work of gathering, it's not just being inviting, it's not just being inviting, and you all are very inviting. You're clear in your website about if somebody wants to come, this is how you enter in. Like if you're driving, these are the places you can park. It's if you park, this is how you validate your parking. Like those, and knowing those things. When folks come in as visitors, you really invite them and you see them and you want to understand who they are and invite them to share their gifts here in a way that's not just about small things, but can actually be about helping people to move into places of leadership in that. So in that work of gathering, I hear you doing that really well. We talk about the transformation of kids, how they're changed by the experience of getting to lead worship, and learn how adults are transformed by that experience also. Like it invites me to pay attention in a different way when I'm watching that. The forum as a tool to transform, that in the midst of the chaos, in the midst of the really challenging things that we see happening in the world, to create safe spaces where you can come and talk in a civil way about things that matter, so that you can go out and practice your faith in more and more full ways as you're called into this. And that's that last piece, that sending piece, how you're taking what you receive here out into the world, out into your home life, into your neighborhood life, into your work life, and how those things, those aspects of how you're being changed are going with you out into the world. I think Francis sought to live into that sending in a very, very radical way. I don't know, most of us can't do that in the fullest way that he did as he sought to follow Jesus. And yet there is something profound that each of us can do. Small things every day that invite us to make more time to be with God, to be in community, to, for me, I think like in the midst of the challenges that we face, my life feels pretty full. Like I feel like my hands are full because I'm doing a lot of things that I care about. And one of the things that I feel is starting to shift was yesterday on a hike with my family that I was just thinking about. I need to start setting some things down. I need to have my hands free to be able to receive something. Do you ever get that feeling? Like maybe you're being invited into a space where you're being asked to do something new. And so I think that's happening for us all the time. And I wonder for you all as individuals, but as a congregation here at St. Paul's, like, are there things that you're being invited to set down? There may be things that you've been doing for a long time, and it could help to really free you up. Maybe there's nothing, but it's worth asking. And I think it was Nick that was saying that many Episcopal churches, you go to, the people that are there, the people that have always been there for generations. And like there is a uniqueness about St. Paul's that you all have been, you've been really fully transformed over the last 10, 15, 20 years. So, we obviously did not solve the problem of what does the work of rebuilding look like in our lives, but I hope you didn't know that we were going to even be talk about the work of rebuilding, yet alone come looking for answers around that. It has been really refreshing to struggle with these questions with you all, to wonder with you all, to see the incredible gifts that you have and the generous ways that you share them in this place. God is doing really amazing things here at St. Paul's, and it's a joy to be in community with you all. As we think together, I get a chance to see how different congregations are embodying the gifts they've been given. And there's not a lot of people in the diocese that get to travel around like that, so I feel like an urgency to tell people about what I see because it's beautiful. And I want you all to be able to, I wish you could see some of what I'm seeing today as I look out at you all. And when I go forth from here, like how I talk about, what I got to do with the people at St. Paul's. So thank you for your faithfulness and for the love, the work of love and the work of justice that you're doing. So if there are ways that I and the wider staff of the bishop can be a support to you all, we're here to walk with you in that. And
Some coffee, people need a little bit.
thank you, and we finished before time too.